Joining me now is Ian Sams, White House spokesman for oversight and investigations, as well as a senior advisor to the White House counsel's office. Ian, thank you very much for coming to the Sunday show. So it was when you were on with my colleague Alicia Menendez last night, she asked you what I thought was probably the most important question, and that was, did DOJ, did the FBI get a search warrant in order to search the president's Wilmington, Delaware home? That you said the answer is no.
That's correct. So let me take a step back and explain a little bit what happened here. So as the president's lawyers from the very beginning discovered those initial set of materials, they immediately and promptly notified the proper authorities. First, it was the National Archives, which is obviously the governing body that takes possession of government records and manages those. And then later, as the Attorney General laid out when he appointed the special counsel, the DOJ was involved and the lawyers directly were engaged with DOJ. They've been coordinating and cooperating with the DOJ fully throughout this process. After the lawyers found an additional document at the president's home, the president asked his team, reach out to the DOJ and give them access to my house. Proactive, voluntary, consensual, as the DOJ said in their statement yesterday. And so they did that on Friday. They went through, as you noted in your open, an unprecedented amount of material, stuff going back decades, his notes, his files, his memorabilia, his to-do lists from decades ago, to just make sure that they had everything. And this is all part of the president's commitment to total cooperation with the Justice Department, making sure that they have the information that they need, making sure that they have the information that they need expeditiously so that they can move forward with the investigation quickly and hit the ground running to settle the review.
I want to come back to those decades-old papers in a moment, but has the FBI searched the president's home in Rehoboth, Delaware?
So I'm going to be very careful here not to speak ahead of potential investigative steps by the DOJ. We're in full cooperation with them. The president's lawyers, White House counsel's office, we're being totally cooperative with DOJ as they move ahead on this. So I want to be very careful not to talk about potential investigative steps. But I think it's important to know that, the president's lawyers are talking with DOJ, are being cooperative as they ask for material or information. And that's going to continue. That's consistent with the president's commitment from the very beginning.
So then you're not going to answer the next question, which was, has the White House already given DOJ access to that house now that the Wilmington search has been completed?
Well, so I think the statements that the president's personal lawyers put out last weekend, for example, noted that they have been in coordination with DOJ throughout this search process. Those are discussions that are happening between the personal lawyers and the DOJ. We want to be really careful not to speak ahead of any of those steps. And I think that there's a reason why. And I understand that there's a little bit of a tension here between publicly disclosing underlying information and facts and material from the investigation. I understand that you all in the media have interest. We understand that the public has interest. But we also want to be really careful to protect the integrity of an ongoing investigation. That is something that the president has said going all the way back to the campaign, that he thinks that the Justice Department should be strong, should be independent, should not be subject to undue political influence. And so when this matter started, we've been fully cooperative. The president's been fully cooperative. And it's consistent with that we don't want to, speak too much about underlying facts while the Justice Department is looking at those.
Sure. I mean, but this raises a question that I've heard a lot of people raise, and that is, why wasn't a complete search of all the properties done back in November when the first batch of documents were found?
Well, so look, the president's lawyers, as we said, have been working with the Department of Justice throughout this process on their search protocols. The president's personal lawyer, for example, last Saturday put out a long memo publicly explaining the search protocols that they worked with the DOJ on to make sure that everybody understood exactly why this happened the way it does. And we've been fully cooperative with the DOJ throughout this process. And so, these are things that are being done as part of an ongoing investigation. The Justice Department obviously more appropriately can speak to their own decision-making about how they conduct these sort of reviews. And so we're just going to be continually fully cooperative with them throughout this process.
All right, I want to have you listen. Neil Katyal, former acting Solicitor General of the United States, was on the show at the top of the last hour. And here's what he had to say about this situation that the president finds himself in. Just watch.
I think what we know about Vice President Biden's document handling is that it was sloppy and it was wrong. It deserves criticism. The question is it criminal?
And so, Ian, my question is, again, because some of these papers were found that are related to the president's tenure as vice president, and even going back to his 36 years in the United States Senate, a lot of people are wondering, how is that possible? There are rules in place for the handling of classified documents. So how is he in this situation?
Well, I think you heard the president's lawyers speak to this exact fact, and you heard the president speak to this fact. You know, he was made aware of this by his lawyers, and I think that there's a really important distinction here. You know, he is proactively cooperating here because he takes it seriously. He wants the DOJ to conduct a thorough review. And he's confident that that process will move forward expeditiously, and we're going to be fully cooperative with that process to get this taken care of. And that's such a distinction in what we've seen in the past. You know, there's no stonewalling here. There's no attacking here. It's been fully cooperative with the DOJ. And so I think that that's important to remember here, is that the president's acknowledging that he wants to work with the DOJ to make sure that they have what they need. He's given unprecedented access to his home voluntarily so they could go through decades of material, as you said, to ensure that they have what they need and to be able to take possession of any documents that should be in possession. The president's committed to that. And so he's being fully cooperative in this process.
Let's talk about Congress and the Republican-controlled Congress now, and particularly the House Oversight Committee. Couple things. One, on CNN.com, there's a story that with the headline, incoming GOP chair says House investigation into Trump's Mar-a-Lago documents, quote, will not be a priority. What's the White House response to that?
I think the American people are smart enough to see what's happening here, that there's suddenly outrage from Republicans when Joe Biden is in the crosshairs of them. You know, we're going to be working in good faith with Congress as they conduct legitimate oversight of our administration. That's the president's commitment. But I think that people understand when they start to show a lack of credibility, when they are saying that they're not going to look at one thing, but they're going to look at another, when they're, you know, similar situations. You know, these are things that I think the American people are smart enough to see the difference between. And frankly, it's surprising that suddenly they would suggest that they're outraged about this instance when they've said comments like you just pointed out.
Another story involving the Oversight Committee, this time the story coming from Politico, and I want to read this quote. Privately, the president's aides sent texts to one another with digital high fives and likened their apparent luck to drawing an inside straight. One White House ally called it, quote, a political gift. My question, Ian, is that an accurate assessment of the mood in the White House on forthcoming investigations by that committee?
Well, I think that what happened this week that we saw was that the Republicans chose really extreme MAGA members of their caucus to be a part of the Oversight Committee. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, Lauren Boebert, people who frankly have said and done dangerous things, threatened violence against political opponents, undercut our democracy, defended the January 6th insurrectionists. These are the people that the Republican caucus in the House are putting on the Oversight Committee to do investigations. That's alarming. It's alarming that those people are getting those spots. And I think that the House Republicans should have to answer for why these individuals who have such extreme, dangerous views are being given rewards to be on a committee like this, to be able to launch in quote-unquote investigations that are going to go after the president. I mean, it's very clear that they're suggesting that this is a political stunt intended to get these very extreme characters onto Fox News, onto Sean Hannity's show to talk about this. And I think that the House Republicans should have to answer that why these individuals who have such extreme views are going to be rewarded in such a way.
And I hear you, and I understand particularly the comment about, you know, the committee just doing political stunts. But is there a danger of overconfidence on the part of White House officials and the people you're now working with, that because it's such a clown show over at the Oversight Committee, that administration officials won't take the work that they're doing, because they do have subpoena power, seriously?
You know, we're going to work in good faith with Congress on oversight. We certainly take oversight seriously, and the president for the last 2 years since we took office has taken oversight seriously, and our responsibilities with the other branch of the government to work with them and get them the information they need. But I think it's important to call out when we see political stunts that are being done to get attention, that are based in unfounded conspiracy theories, things that the mainstream press, folks who are looking at the facts here, have pointed out are totally made up and false. And so when people who are in these positions have that as their record, we're not going to be afraid to call it out. At the same time, we understand that there's going to be oversight matters that we're going to be handling seriously, and we're going to work in good faith with Congress to work through those.
And so then if the Oversight Committee tries to knit together a quilt that includes Hunter Biden, these classified documents, as Chair Comer said on PBS the other night, influence peddling by the Biden administration. Is that something, this effect to connect the dots that way, would that be an investigation that the administration would take seriously?
Well, we'll see what they're going to do. I mean, I think that that they can say a lot, put out a lot of press releases, do a lot of media interviews, but we'll take a look at the letters that they send. We'll take a look at their actual investigative actions, and we'll respond to the Congress as appropriate. I think that it's just very clear that a lot of these things are rooted in false conspiracy theories. That's been a part of, frankly, an approach that they've taken on issues like this, going back all the way for 3-4 years to the campaign. And I think that over and over again, you know, they go first with claims and then try to find facts to back it up. And we're just going to be able to call that out when they do it.